Yeah, yeah.
Right? Which is very interesting to note. So I've always grew up with the idea of UFOs and aliens,
Yeah.
you understand me, just as, you know, a knowledge in the household.
Yeah, yeah. People just get scared. They think that we're talking about little green men.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about men and women, people that look just like us.
Yeah.
The majority, I think, of people that we calling aliens look just like us, in my opinion.
I would imagine, and if you gotta understand, if I'm an alien, I'm up there, I wouldn't want to come to Earth.
Yeah, no, that's ghetto.
Like, if I got a little alien TV, you know what I'm saying, and I'm watching the reality Earth, the reality TV Earth. That's what it was called. It's called reality TV Earth. And I'm flipping these different channels, and y'all tripping.
Yeah.
You know, oh man, this what the Bloods is doing. This what the pharmacists. I don't ever want to come down there. If I get caught, they throw me in the prison for life. If I don't know all their rules and I trip up.
Building remnants of what looks like ancient structures that resemble the same construction technique that we see in Peru and Bolivia and Egypt and everywhere else. And so it's like, why in the world would we see something so similar on Mars and on Earth? What is the connection? When you go into the ancient Sumerian tablets, you discover that there were beings living on Mars called the Igigi in these ancient tablets. They were the working class Anunnaki people, and they were up there creating a breakaway civilization, but the atmosphere was very harsh as it is today. And so they were complaining to their rulers who were on Earth, Enki, Enlil, and Anu, that the conditions up there were kind of harsh, and they don't mind it, but they would just like to have a break. And they also said, and by the way, we would love to have some women too. They didn't have any women, supposedly. They wanted some women, and they wanted to take a rest. And so they weren't given a break. And so in the Epic of Atrahasis, they decided to go to war against the kings of Earth. These are the sons of God. Anu was called the God figure, and his sons would be these Igigi beings, the sons of God that fell to Earth and rebelled against God. They came down from Mars to Earth. They encircled the campus in South Africa called Adam's Calendar. And the whole thing is scripted out in this tablet, how they were about to go to war, literally, and fight. And then Enki says, I have an idea. There's an existing hominid on this planet. We can add our essence to it and get it to bear your load. So an agreement was made and the war was thwarted that one time. And eventually they did go to war. However, these beings were traveling back and forth from Earth to Mars. They had the same construction technique, the same concepts, the same knowledge and everything else, the same blueprints. And they were building a concurrent running civilization on Mars that was running on Earth. And that's why when you look at some of these images, we meaning my team of anomaly hunters, have downloaded over 1 million images and have cataloged over 60,000 amazing anomalies from Mars image data that shows you this is not just a rare thing, a rare occurrence. It's circumstantial evidence that links Mars to Earth.
Yeah. Nah, guess what? I'm not coming down there. Yeah. You understand me? That would just make sense to me.
Yeah, it does. See, it was easier for them to interact with people when we had less technology and we were more green, so to speak, because there was no immediate threat on their life. There was nothing we could do. Matter of fact, we saw them as gods. Right. Now with all this technology and the military-industrial complex wanting to weaponize anything they can get their hands on, they want to take them down, they want to shoot them down, they want to get their hands on them and see what they could turn into weapons. What kind of technology can we convert into weapons for ourselves? How can we reverse engineer this stuff? That's all they're focused on.
Why do you think that these elitists are done here on Earth?
The big problem we have is a lot of people are waking up now, right? Evidence of that is the fact that we're sitting here talking about this on this podcast to millions of people. I'm on mainstream TV shows. I'm on History Channel, Discovery Channel, Science Channel, Travel Channel. I'm on mainstream shows talking about these topics because people want to hear them now. When I first started talking about this stuff, I would hide in the bushes and talk to one like friend. And now all of a sudden I could talk to the world through many different platforms. So the world is waking up, the world is changing and becoming a much different place. And how long will it be before the people say, we're not gonna play your game anymore. We're just done. And this whole thing shifts in another direction. And that could cause a lot of turmoil and in the transition process, a lot of wars, infighting, civil stuff, civil wars. It can cause economic collapses, which can cause a lot of starvation and poverty in the interim while things recoalesce. And they're thinking, you know what, how can we avoid all of this? Let's just go to Mars, start fresh.
That's interesting. I mean, what do you in your mind, do you think this is going to happen by 2050?
I believe it could happen before then, actually. Yeah, I think that the technology he's talking about utilizing is basing it on technology from like 2015. That, any technology that's using now was developed 10 years ago. And so by 2050, you're talking about technology that he probably had developed maybe in 2038 or something like that. So I think it'll happen a lot sooner than that. And I have a lot of, I'm an optimist. I have optimistic mentality. I believe that I have a lot of optimism in humanity that we are going to come through this time in our short lifespan on this planet through what we're doing to each other, the divide and conquer tactics, the separation, the division. We're going to see through all this illusion that's been put on us and programmed into our bodies. I think eventually we're going to rise up and take back control of this planet, reform this global economic system in something that's positive, that works. And I believe we're going to start heading back towards a golden age again. There were golden ages in the past on this planet, and I believe that we're headed back to another one again. It's going to take some time. It's a gradual, slow process, but look where we came from in only 100 years, like I said earlier. A horse, buggy, and carriage are putting cars in space. So I believe that it's going to happen. I think that we've gotten past this nuclear scare, my personal opinion. I think that the beings up there let us know by showing up at these flights and these missile silos and deactivating our nukes that we weren't going to be able to use them whether we wanted to or not anyway, after what we did to Japan and so forth. And so I just believe that we're in a stage right now where we got past destroying ourselves. And after we get through this arduous process of learning how to walk, because we're children, we got to learn how to walk. Then we'll learn how to run. It's going to take some time, but we'll get there. So if you look at Mars, you'll find that a lot of the anomalies are kind of really resemble ancient structures on Earth. Not only that, we've actually discovered things that look like, and we can't say they are because we're not there, that look like ankhs. You know, the shape of the Egyptian ankh. We found quite a few laying on the surface of Mars in different areas and so forth. How in the world can the Egyptian ankh be on Mars? Things carved into sides of mountains that look like Egyptian motif. Why would that be on Mars and on Earth?
Yeah, I mean, human beings are not nice.
Right.
You understand? We want to steal their technology and then use it for ourselves. And if we get them, most likely you'll capture the science of their biology.
Yeah.
Who want to come to Earth with that?
You put them in a zoo.
Yeah, we wonder if aliens are hostile, but we already hostile.
We're the hostile ones.
We hostile to aliens of other countries.
Yeah.
So I know we're going to be hostile to aliens from other planets.
I know. It's crazy. It's
like,
true.
A guarantee. You understand? It'd be like, you don't want to let a human being to over one border to another. So you're telling me I'm coming from another planet and y'all gonna let me come kick it and share resources in life? Ain't no way, no how.
Not gonna happen.
Especially, but the old saying is that, you know, if aliens have the technology in which we believe they have and the abilities to travel, and that means that number one, they're much far advanced than we are, which requires a greater level of intelligence. And so they would have more capabilities of wiping us out than we ever could imagine.
Oh yeah.
You understand me? In ways that we wouldn't be able to see.
Yeah.
Right? As much as the human intelligence has evolved collectively, because, you know, I don't think that the average human being is that much more intelligent than somebody in the 1800s.
Right.
Besides the fact we have more access. Right? But when we talk about true human evolution, we're talking about upgrades of our DNA.
Right.
We're talking about upgrading and the processing of information and how we output that to solve daily problems and issues. And the average person is not that intelligent.
No.
That's why we
the smartphones are making us dumber.
Yeah, that's a super fact.
Yeah.
You understand me? And the radiation is destroying our ability to focus.
Yeah.
And human beings collectively need focus in order to grow. You understand me? Like, if you don't have no focus in your life, you're distracted to the point where you can't get birth to none of your ideas.
Right.
You understand me? So it's like, alien. I feel like the concept of them are interesting, and I think that the world needs mysteries in order to give us more reasons to be alive.
Yeah.
You understand me? Because the moment we figure out everything else, there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
You know, and we know why the cosmos was created, how it was created, at every single point and step. That the reality of it is there's a possibility for certain knowledge to be known. We can theorize based on our level of intelligence, but who's to say that the math that we have is like not baby's math.
Right.
You know, and then we discover a completely new type of math that allow us to phase through things, and open portals, and create different versions of reality and different colors to see. Like, to say that there's not a science like that exists, but the same way where we can only see a certain spectrum of the light, maybe our mind can only compute certain spectrum of knowledge.
There is oxygen.
There is oxygen on Mars. Yes, there's oxygen. Not only that, guess what they said about the soil? They said the soil on Mars is better for growing crops than the soil on Earth.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. How would they know this, right? Also, there's not just oxygen, but all the other gases that are needed to sustain biological life. Now, is oxygen still leaking into the atmosphere? Yes, it's still leaking out into the atmosphere, but there's somewhere being generated. They keep finding more and more oxygen is being generated from somewhere as it's leaking. So who's creating or what is creating this oxygen? I believe, my personal opinion, this is not in any science book, that there are trees and plant life on Mars based on some of the satellite images that I've seen. I'm going to send you some to show to your viewers with the source links and so they can look it up themselves and see for themselves what I'm looking at. I believe that there's a source that is generating, and they've also found a lot of methane. Why is there methane? Methane is usually a byproduct of a biological process. There's a lot of methane on Mars, which means something is alive and something is creating waste product. Now, I don't see any cows on TV on Mars, so something's up there. They don't want to tell us what it is. So my personal opinion, based off of my research and what I've seen in some of these anomalies that exist in the images, they are building a breakaway civilization on Mars because that's the next big place to go and create their own thing. And there's an infrastructure that is being built there for a very, very long time. And when they arrive, they are going to inhabit those infrastructures. They're not going to be living in a tin can and walking around in a spacesuit until they die. Billionaires that have the creature comforts of this planet, oceans, lakes, rivers, private jet flights, parties and mansions and everything else, aren't going to go live in a tin can until they die. There's something up there that they know exists and they're going to live in it. Most of it, I believe, is underground, subterranean, and that's where they're going. And it's a great place to become an explorer. I wouldn't mind going to Mars. If I can get a way to get a ticket to Mars, I actually believe I would go. I would love to see some of these anomalies that I found up there with my own eyes.
That's so true. We can only compute to a certain amount because it's only based on our level of consciousness.
Right. But that also means to me, though, that I don't believe in the idea of impossible. You understand me? I think that there's something that exists that I don't measure size based on value. So it's like, let's say human beings are just a cell, you understand me, and the bacteria of the universe. Yeah. You understand me? That doesn't mean we don't have value, because the way that we experience reality is our value in itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You understand me? That we are energy and that we wouldn't be in existence if we didn't have a level of value.
Yeah.
It's just that I think we come up with more systems to devalue ourselves than anything.
Right.
We think about how vast the universe is only to think about how small we are.
Right.
Human beings need to constantly downgrade themselves and constantly demean themselves, put themselves in their own place.
Right.
And in that thought process, we are becoming our own gods, sitting ourselves saying that humble yourself, humble yourself.
Yeah.
We try to find a million different ways to humble ourselves.
Always.
Because that would mean to tell me that our brain is working to control how powerful we really are. You understand me? And let free and really understanding who you really are, that's when you just start creating more and more.
I need to correct myself. It's by 2050.
2050?
Mars will be inhabited.
Well, actually, he's changed that. Okay, look at some of the older articles. Originally, it was 2020. Then I believe it was 2025, then 2030. Now it's 2050. Originally, he wanted to take 80,000 people. Then it went up from there. I think it's now 1 million people he wants to do it with. So it keeps changing. You might have heard 2025 or read it somewhere before, but the timeline keeps changing as the reality of the technology accomplishing its mission changes. And he's utilizing something extremely dangerous to get there. That would never go with Elon Musk technology because it has too many components. First, it has to lift off from Earth and go into space, not with no people on it. Then it's got to build its own space little station up there. right? And it's gonna fuel up. And then another thing has to launch and connect to that. And then they both have to take off and go to Mars. And then something's gotta detach and go down to the surface and start building things and doing this and doing that, and getting fuel ready for a return or whatever they need for whatever they need to create on the surface. And then after years of that going on, then people get in the ship and they take off, and this other thing has to come back, and they got to connect to that, and they got to ride that to Mars. It's like, come on, how many accidents can happen? Are you kidding me? This is like a bad deck of cards just waiting to collapse. One mistake anywhere in any component and everybody's dead. So to me, it's a joke. I mean, I'd rather go on Branson. Richard Branson has a better idea. He's got a space plane. It takes off, it flies into space, it comes back. It doesn't even have the heat tiles underneath it because it drops through the atmosphere and comes straight back in, and then it flies back to the ground. I'd rather go on something like that than go on something that has 100,000 connections that have got to be made before you can even step foot on the surface.
Yeah.
When you get to that level, anything that you think of, you just do.
Yeah.
I just bought an electric guitar before. Yeah. I'm gonna learn how to play the electric guitar. You know, my girl was like, "You bought an electric guitar?" I said, "Yeah, I just want to learn how to play it." You know, I bought a violin, I played the violin. Whatever I want to do, I just do it. Yeah. Because I see it as we are this entity here, and the universe is vast. But I see it as I'm a part of something huge, where other people see it as I'm just a speck in the dark.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But so let me ask you this: you discovered a black satellite?
The Black Knight satellite. I didn't discover it; it's already up there. But
well, you know the rules on this planet.
Yeah, I know.
You know, we're going by Christopher Columbus law. Yeah. You discovered this, man.
Yeah. Well, of course. And so what happened was I had heard about it and researched it years ago.
Well, first let's say, what is the Black Knight satellite?
Okay, the Black Knight satellite is an object.
Like Batman got his.
I know. It's crazy. This is real crazy. So this is an object orbiting the planet. And it's well documented. It's actually on the space agency servers. It's on the military servers. It's on university website servers. The object is that they've labeled it space junk. So what they're saying is this object, which was detected all the way back in the late 1800s by Nikola Tesla first. He picked up a signal from it. Then the 1950s, ham radio operators picked up a signal again and actually decoded the signal. 1960, Duncan Lunan wrote an article. He's a journalist for Time magazine. Wrote an article about the object. It made Time magazine, and then many more consequential articles came out about this object because why? It was changing its own orbits. It was in the first equatorial orbit, then it went to a polar orbit. When Sputnik was launched in 1964, it followed Sputnik to the moon. This thing is under intelligent control. It's about 15,000 tons. And so what happened was the United States saw it up there, Russia saw it up there, Russia thought it was us, we thought it was Russia. Then we both said, wait a minute, we can't launch nothing like this. We don't even have this kind of technology. And so they were like, damn, what is this? So they really started looking at this thing and analyzing it. And we finally got a chance to see it close up, personal, with the STS missions, the space shuttle mission. Took HD quality video and photos of this thing. And they were like, wow, we're gonna call it junk because we don't know what this is. They're afraid to touch it. They're afraid to move into it and try to, take a piece of it to see. They don't know if it's going to have a defense mechanism or whatever. They just know this thing is orbiting the planet in a way that it shouldn't be orbiting. And the fact that it is giving off a signal that has been decoded as being the Epsilon Boötis constellation. But that's not a big deal. But the big deal about that is it's giving the location of the constellation where it was in the sky 13,000 years ago. So this thing potentially could be 13,000 years old. And so what I did was I created a documentary, which is coming out in June the 5th, it hits the movie theaters. This object is it's still moving around, still making its own course corrections. And it is still giving off a signal, and the signal is still giving up the location. When you look into the Sumerian tablets, you find out that Enlil owns the Epsilon Boötis constellation, the same constellation that this thing is saying it's from.
As time goes on, we see more and more billionaires, trillionaires, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Richard Branson. I mean, there's this obsession with Mars. Why is the fascination in space? Has all of Earth been discovered? I mean,
No.
Is it hopeless here? Why is everybody moving to Mars?
You know, it's like, how many times can you beat a dead horse? And the big problem we have is a lot of people are waking up now, right? Evidence of that is that the fact that we're sitting here talking about this on this podcast to millions of people. How long will it be before the people say, we're not going to play your game anymore. We're just done. And this whole thing shifts in another direction. And that could cause a lot of turmoil in the transition process, a lot of wars, infighting.
What could spark a worldwide conflict, and which countries might be the most likely to ignite such a conflict?
So that's probably one of his ships just up there chilling.
Yeah, it's his all-seeing eye. He had an all-seeing eye in the tablets. That's where they got it from for Lord of the Rings and all these things. The all-seeing eye came out in the tablets. He had an all-seeing eye, so he could see what was going on the planet at all times. See, when you have a planet
that's
spinning,
why you consider it a satellite.
Yeah, a satellite. When your planet is spinning on its axis, and you have something orbiting this way, it's able to take scans of the planet in a way that can give you a view of the entire planet in so many hours, right? Versus doing this way, you can only get what's going around the equator. But when you do this way, you can see the entire planet. And so he had that all-seeing eye. And what happened was Michio Kaku made an amazing statement that made me want to make this documentary. He said, in Epsilon, it's about 10 years ago, there's a void. It's called the Epsilon Vortex Void. It's the largest empty space inside of a constellation that they know of in the universe. He said, but it looks like light is bending around something. He said, this looks like a type 1, type 2 civilization that's cloaked in Epsilon. So when I found out about the signal coming from Epsilon, and Lil owns Epsilon in the Sumerian tablets, he's an Anunnaki, I said, I think this is all linked. And then I found cylinder scrolls that show the Black Knight in ancient cylinder scrolls. So all this is going in the documentary, which is coming out very soon.
We haven't even, really looked at the oceans that much. There's so much going on here on this planet and explored a lot of Earth. There's so much more to explore. However, based on the way we're set up as a global economic system, and you look at what's going on, it just seems to a lot of billionaires that the next big move is, let's go create a breakaway civilization and start our own thing over here, basically is what it is. And so we know that Mars has a lot of data over the last several decades. Why? Because we've sent so many missions to Mars, and so has Russia as well. If you look at the total amount of missions to Mars with rovers and satellites and calculate the expenditure, you're in the trillions of dollars. Now, why would anybody spend trillions of dollars to go visit a cold, dry rock? So it makes these billionaires start asking questions, and then they're in the in crowd so they can get some answers, and they find out that Mars is not exactly what we've been told in terms of habitability. We found out that Mars, we were told, was a cold, dry rock with no magnetic field, and DNA would just unravel based on the radiation. All of a sudden, the new science has come out.
Fascinating, man. I got one last thing to ask you about. You've searched through thousands of pictures from the Mars rover.
Yeah.
And you've actually found a face.
Face, anomalies.
Famous face, though.
Yeah.
On Mars.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that, brother.
Well, there's this object in Cydonia. Ironically, they call Cydonia on Mars, this area where there's this space and these pyramids. On Earth, Cydonia in ancient times is Cairo. So they really know what they're doing. They're hiding through the plain sight for us. But there's a gigantic 4-mile wide face there. And the face is right outside of a pyramid city with a 5-sided pyramid. Now the city, the pyramids, and this other debris, which looks like a collapsed structure, is in a format which there's an angle of 19
Talk to me, man.
degrees. Okay.
Now, before you go to arrive to your next thought process, most people don't know about the number 19, that there are phenomena all across the universe that are at angles of 19 degrees.
That's right.
Including Jupiter's red eye.
Yeah.
You're talking about Yellowstone Park, different volcanoes, all throughout the universe.
Yeah, that's true.
Mars has a rotating magnetic field. And not only that, it spins on its axis almost at the same exact speed of Earth. So a day on Mars is like 23.5 hours. And so that speed of the rotation on its axis creates something called bow shock, which bends and warps cosmic rays and radiation around the planet, along with the weakened magnetic field. You can actually survive. Anything with DNA can survive on the surface. Also now, the science data has come back from the REMS unit we sent there, and there's oxygen.
And so this is 19-degree angles making this triangle, right? Where these landmarks are on Cydonia on Mars. The face, the five-sided pyramid and this other area where it looks like a collapsed city. And so Avebury in the UK on Earth, right by Stonehenge, you have this city there where there's these artificial structures built up from dirt, mounds they call them, and these paths through the land. If you take that Avebury ordnance map from the city, which is downloadable online, and overlay it on Cydonia, where the face is located, it's a perfect match. So somebody on Earth mimicked what was already on Mars, but the only thing is this was like in the 1600s.
It was terraforming, you understand me, and replicating what was on Mars.
Yeah, that's what was happening.
Well, that's some interesting dynamics right there, man.
Yeah.
I think one thing about what we can all agree about this planet Earth is that we don't know everything.
No.
You understand me? And there are schools of mystery, thoughts of mystery that maybe remain mystery for all eternity.
Yeah.
You understand me? Or maybe we know, but we don't have verification. And the unfortunate aspect of now is that we need to verify everything so that it becomes evidence as fact.
Exactly.
Because I don't believe the Dogon people actually went to the constellations,
No.
you understand me, and mapped it out and then came back.
No.
I think that they had a connection and an intuitive knowing and understanding that was downloaded transferable knowledge, you understand me? And they didn't have any reason to question it. They wrote it down, this is what we're seeing, because this is what came to it.
Yeah.
Why would information come to a people who are pure, uncorrupted from all of the images, the information that we get now in society? When I tell you what's a picture of, an alien, or picture of a mountain, or picture of this place, you're usually going through an image that you perceive as reality. Yeah. What if the color corrected filter may never be what you actually think it is until you go and experience?
Right.
So unfortunately, we have all of this data and information in our head, which doesn't allow us to truly think like human beings connected to reality.
Yeah.
We are connected to the digital structures, and they inform us on what reality actually is. But I wanted to jump off of Earth for a second, you understand me, look above and see things from a different dimension. Now, one thing that I do know is that I don't believe we have a beginning nor ending. You understand me? I think that the beauty of human soul and human spirit is that it is limitless. And we find different ways to go through experiences over and over and over. And I think that memories are too heavy to be carried over into whatever other phase that we exist throughout life as energy transfer.
Yeah.
So we go through those things consistently. But I believe that, we are a source, you understand me, which gives us that same power. Yeah. And that regardless of wherever you at on this planet Earth, whatever condition, level, system, whatever you believe in, you have the power to produce change.
Yeah.
And that can be measured scientifically, it can be measured theologically, it can be measured spiritually. There's enough evidence, if you need it, to showcase that you have the power to change whatever condition that you are in on this planet Earth. You understand me? And at the same time, we have to realize that there's a game being played on our backs. And the only way that it's going to change is if we stand up.
That's it.
You understand me? And we tap into that inner intelligence that allows us to rule over our spectrum of reality.
Yeah. Another incredible thing. Remember, they said they took women back with them in this tablet. The human being, circadian rhythm, is actually more in tune to Mars' daylight and night cycle than the Earth daylight-night cycle. That's real biology, real science. That's interesting. So you start putting all these pieces of the puzzle together, and all of a sudden, it looks like we have a direct connection with Mars, the god of war. And why the god of war? Because in that last war, according to the tablets, it extended all the way to Mars. And what has happened on Mars? It looks like it was in a war. And when you analyze the Mars Global Surveyor data and the other data from the rovers, you find that there's xenon in the atmosphere and xenon in the soil. But not any kind of xenon, weapons-grade xenon. That's a byproduct of nuclear warfare. Where'd that come from? Pretty interesting.
Very interesting.